Hello everyone, this is Gautam from Shailaja, and this video we'll be discussing on the new CPI series which was officially released by Union Government of India in February 2026. Right? CPI stands for your Consumer Price Index. Right? So in this video we'll first try and understand what is the significance of this CPI, okay, or what is this Consumer Price Index itself. I think if you have read economy basics, you will be in a position to understand what is inflation and how to measure inflation. And one of the primary tool for measuring your retail inflation is your consumer price index. We'll try and understand the significance of it. We'll try and understand what are the new changes that has been brought in by the new series, right? And we'll try and understand what are the positive implications of these new changes and what are some of the concerns associated with these changes. Okay. So first and foremost thing, I think inflation, you should know. Inflation is general rise in price of goods and services over a period of time. That is inflation. For example, your rice 30 years back used to cost around, you can say 10 rupees or 15 rupees per kg. But now it is costing around 45, 50, 55 rupees per kg. So there is a general rise in price of goods and services. Earlier, if you wanted to get an haircut, you could have paid around 30 rupees, 40 rupees. Now in any decent shop, you are supposed to pay around 100 rupees. Okay. So not only goods, but also services are going to see the rise in the prices over a period of time. Okay. And the primary measure, how to measure it, you have to have a certain number, you have to have certain index. That is your consumer price index. So what is this actually measuring? It is measuring the average increase in the price of goods and services of a fixed basket of goods and services of both your rural and urban consumers over a period of time, right? So that is the official definition or the correct definition of your consumer price index, and it is the primary measure to it is a primary measure for your retail inflation. The retail inflation means whatever is the consumer is buying, whatever me and you are buying. There is one thing called as wholesale inflation, who are the producers, okay, what the producers are going to purchase from the market. Okay, that is not important for us right now. For us, what is important is your consumer and the retail inflation part of it. That is the end part of it, right? Who releases it? It is released by your National Statistical Office under your Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Okay, how often it is released? It is released once in a month, right? And why it is very important? Why this index is very important? First and foremost thing, based on this index itself, RBI is going to fine-tune its monetary policy. Okay, RBI is given a target that you have to maintain the inflation at 4% plus or minus 2%. So it can range, so it has to take measures in such a manner, it has to tweak its policy rates in such a manner that the retail inflation in economy stays within the range of 2% to 6%. Okay, so and if at all the way you are going to measure the retail inflation is going to change, it is also certainly going to impact your monetary policy, right? Second important aspect, your see, if the cost of living is increasing, that is what is your general rise in price of goods and services, right? So if I as an employee, if I am getting, for example, 10,000 rupees, or for example, I am getting 20,000 rupees per month. See, I'll obviously try to put pressure on my employer by saying that, sir, the prices are increasing. Petrol rise, earlier it was 100 rupees, now it is 110 rupees. Oil was earlier 160 rupees, now it is 180 rupees, 200 rupees. So if you keep giving me the same amount of salary, it is not going to help me maintain my living standards. So there is a pressure which is going to be put by the employees to increase their wages because of inflation, because of general rise in price of goods and services. Okay, so your wage fixation is also your consumer price index is playing a role with regard to wage fixation, because it is giving you a measure of the inflation part of it, right? And your dearness allowance, which is given to your government employees, which is a part of your salary, it is a variable part of the salary. That allowance is dependent on your consumer price index, because this allowance is given for to address the needs of to deal with the rise in prices of goods and services. Okay. Another important utility of your consumer price index, your CPI, is that it is used in GDP deflator. You're going to calculate your GDP, nominal GDP and real GDP. Okay, and in order to that inflation is taken into consideration, and the measure of this inflation is your consumer price index. Okay, and your consumer price index is also going to estimate the poverty levels in our country, right? So this is the utility of your consumer price index. I think most of you might have understood it from your basics or fundamentals of your economy. We'll try and understand what are the changes that has been brought in and why it was in news. The very first thing is that the base year is now being changed. Earlier, the base year was 2012, and whatever the prices data it is going to accumulate was done through your consumer expenditure surveys, which was conducted by your National Statistics Office from multiple points. Now, the base year is now changed to 2024. Okay, and your household consumer expenditure survey, which is an improved version of your CES with a better methodology and wider coverage, is being used to determine the basket of goods and services. Earlier, when calculating your CPI, around 299 items were included. These 299 items, how they are coming to know, from where they are coming to know, this survey used to help them. Okay, and they used to be categorized under 6 groups. Okay, housing one group, foods one group, health expenditure one group. So there were multiple. Communication and transport is another group, entertainment is another group. So earlier there were 299 items and 6 groups, and all this basket of goods and services was determined by your consumer expenditure survey. Now 2024 is the base year. They are divided into 12 divisions. Okay, so it is much more broader network, and these divisions or the basket of goods and services are aligned with your UN standards. Okay, once it is aligned with your United Nations standards, for international players or for international investors, it will help them to easily compare amongst different countries, because you're aligning with UN standards. Okay, 59 items extra has now been included. Earlier 299 items, now it is 358 items. Now what are some of the new additions? Your OTT platforms. Okay, most of us are having some or the other subscription, Hotstar or your Netflix or your Amazon Prime. So that is also one of the important item which many of us are consuming, and if they are increasing the prices, it is going to hurt us, right? So that is also a part of your CPI series, right? Your babysitters, your gym equipments, gym memberships, all these are now being tracked. If there are changes in the prices, that is now being tracked, and that is going to be a part of your measure or index called as your consumer price index. Now, one important aspect. Okay, so first thing is your base year 2024. Second thing is the items has been increased and aligned with your UN standards. Another important aspect is the food weightage. Okay, so whatever was the good food that people were consuming, be it on rice, be it on meat, be it on eggs, be it on fruits, vegetables, other things, all it used to constitute around 45.86% of the entire CPI. So it used to have very high weightage in calculation of your CPI. Now they have reduced that to 36.75%. Now, what is the reason given by the government to reduce it by almost 10 percentage points? The reason is very simple. They say that 80% of the country are getting free food grains through your National Food Security Act, right? So as a result, they are not actually spending from their pocket in order to purchase some of the basic food grains. So therefore, these social transfers in kind which is happening from the government needs to be removed. Okay, this is a social transfer, right? The free food grains is nothing but a transfer of it, social transfer of these goods to a citizen, which they are not repaying back. There is no payment associated with it. This is just a transfer of it. And since it is happening, people are not actually spending from their pockets. So we need to reduce the weightage given to the food expenditure. And it has been reduced almost by 10 percentage points. Okay, housing expenditure is now being an increasing part of the overall expenditure. So they have increased the weightage from 10.07% to 17.67%. Right? So, and earlier only around 310 urban towns were tracked with regard to monitoring the prices of housing. But now even rural housing prices are also included, because they have understood that even in rural areas, people are taking on rent and people are spending with regard to construction of houses or taking loans and repaying it in a monthly installments. So housing expenditure is also a significant component even in rural areas. So we need to track prices in those areas as well. So as a result, the rural housing is now included and almost 17%. So its weightage has also gone up. Food weightage has come down. Housing weightage has increased. More number of items have been added. OTT platforms, gym membership, babysitters, pen drives, other things. E-commerce prices are now being tracked. Okay. Earlier, all this collection of data was based on paper-based surveys. Now it's all going to be digital. Your digital tablets, they're going to track the prices. They're also looking for prices in e-commerce platforms. They're going to track prices, what is offering, and other things. Right? So this is the overall change that has been brought in the new CPI series. Okay. So if I want to just recap it, first thing, 2024 base year, wider coverage of 358 items spread across 12 divisions aligned with your global UN standards. Food component has come down from 45% to roughly 35%, and your rural housing has now been included. Overall housing component has increased, and it is now even tracking prices in your e-commerce platforms, online prices, and it has expanded the coverage of items. Right? That's the summary part of it. Now, what are the implications of this? First and foremost thing is the volatility, reduced volatility. The food inflation is always volatile. What do you mean by volatile? It is going to increase and decrease in a much larger volume in a much shorter span of time. So today there is a bumper, for example, tomorrow there is a bumper harvest of onion. The prices is going to suddenly crash. Suppose there is floods and there is destruction of crops. So your onion crops are going to be devastated. There is going to be shortage of onions. It is going to immediately shoot up. So food is a very volatile component because it is dependent on monsoons, and monsoons no one is able to accurately predict it. Now, if the food component is reduced, the overall CPI, this volatility is also going to be reduced. From 45% it has brought down to 35%. So even if there is a huge change, it will not be impacted too much. Earlier it was impacting too much because almost half of it was accounted for food. So if there was any change in food, your CPI would also change in a more drastic manner. Now, since the component of food is reduced, the volatility is not going to be easily transferred to CPI. So CPI becomes more stable now. CPI becomes more stable. Okay? And that enables your RBI or monetary policy instruments to become more effective. Because earlier, what used to happen, RBI did not have much control to deal with inflation of food because it is all caused by supply side constraints. That was not under the control of RBI. Okay. Now, since the component is reduced, RBI is now having better or increased ability to transfer the monetary policies or to implement the monetary policies, right? Second important aspect or the implications of it is it is an accurate reflection of Engel's law. What does this Engel's law say? It clearly says that if the income of an individual is increasing, Okay, suppose the income of person is 100, that has increased to 200. The percentage of the income that is spent on food items is going to reduce. Okay, for example, here if he is spending it 50%, that is 50 rupees. He is spending 50 rupees on food expenditure. The Engel's law clearly says that this percentage is going to reduce. So suppose it is reducing by 40%. Okay, 40% of 200 is 80 rupees. Absolute terms it might increase. The law clearly says that also. That absolutely it might increase from 50 rupees to 80 rupees, it might increase. But as a share of your total revenue, that is going to reduce. And this is accurate reflection, because as the overall income of the country is increasing, as the per capita income of the country is increasing, the proportion of money spent on food items is going to reduce. So from 45% it is coming to 35%, clearly showing that the overall income of a country is increasing. Okay, see, absolute terms it might increase, but the percentage is going to reduce. That is what is the Engel's law, right? And as I also already told you, it leads to better monetary policy calibration, okay, because of reduced volatility and better stability. Why it is happening? Because the food component is reduced. Okay. Now, other greater implications is it is now even considering your digital and service economy. Earlier it was not a part of it. Now increasingly people are consuming digital services, or right? Our service economy is playing a more important role, right? The inclusion of OTT and other things. Rural housing is included, and that is also a better coverage. There is a better reflection of your average increase in price of goods and services, right? And it improves your global comparability because it is aligned with your UN standards, right? Now, what are the concerns that has been associated? The first and foremost concern is the back series data is not officially released by your National Statistical Office. Okay, so back series data means what? See, right now they are not in a position to compare the CPI or the inflation of 2026 with the inflation in 2018 or 17 or 16. No, because both are methodology is different, base is different, everything is different. They have just provided you a linking factor, but they have not officially released the back series data. So that becomes a bit difficult to analyze if the policy is going in the right direction or not, right? Second thing they are saying is that you have excluded the social transfers in kind. Whatever the government is transferring through food grains, you have excluded on an argument that since it is provided free of cost by the government, and since they are not actually spending it from their own pocket, the percentage should be reduced. But this can be whatever is the government transferring free food grains. If tomorrow it is stopped, it is going to immediately impact the poor persons. But that is not going to be reflected in your CPI series, right? So there is a mismatch with regard to that. So that is one of the concerns which has been said. So if at all government rollbacks it, it has to somehow address that rollbacking part of it. Okay, and they still say that for poor people, expenditure on food items is still very significant. By reducing it, you're trying to underestimate the impact of food expenditure for a poor household. So that is one of the concerns which has been raised. And they also say that the new items which has been added, like your airfares, OTT subscriptions, e-commerce prices, all these are actually more volatile. It's very difficult to track. Is it really an accurate measure of your CPI or not, right? So these are all some of the concerns that has been expressed. And that is all about this video, about this particular ratio. Let's see, let's try to understand. Okay, this is a different question, forget it. Okay, if you have any doubts, you can always contact to me on this particular mobile number or on my email ID. All the very best.